Well, hey guys, welcome back to Last Stop Repair Shop. My name's Fran, and today we're going to show you guys how to change the seal for the mid PTO on your John Deere 445 riding lawnmower. Well, let's get started. All right, so the first thing you guys are going to want to do, of course, is look up the technical manual for your 425, 445, or even the 455 John Deere riding lawnmower. So your technical manual should look a little something like this. And you guys can find this on the interwebs. It's pretty easy. If you just type in, I believe, John Deere TM1517, you should be able to find a PDF of it. It's pretty widely available online. So, and this will show you all the different troubleshooting techniques for this particular series of lawnmowers. So it covers pretty much everything for the gas, the diesel, anything electrical for all three models, steering, brakes, hydraulics. We're really interested in this guy right here, the hydrostatic powertrain. So that's what we're going to go. I already took the liberty to look up the page numbers for the things we're going to need to look at, which is 673. Takes us right to PTO drive mid. All right, so removal and installation. This is kind of what it looks like inside the transaxle, or the hydrostatic, I guess they call it, the hydrostatic axle. So what we're going to do is pull this cover off the back of here, and then we're going to need to remove this snap ring right here. And then, of course, we'll pull this gear off. There'll be a couple of bolts holding this bearing in here, and then the PTO shaft, and then there's a needle bearing here. You're going to want to check that needle bearing, make sure it's in good shape. Make sure you guys check the shaft, make sure there's no wear on that. If we have any wear in either one of these two components, that would allow this shaft to move up and down, side to side. That could be the cause of your leak, to be honest. So if that's the case, simply changing the seal isn't going to get it. And then, of course, the seal we're going after is right here. It's really important to read the entire procedure all the way through, because if you don't, you're going to miss some important steps. And one of them being step number 9 right here, step number 9, which is left axle must be removed to remove the PTO output shaft assembly. You can see the way the shaft is cut down right here in the center of the shaft. They didn't do that because they wanted to. They did it because it was interfering with the axle shaft. So before we can actually get to this point, we're going to have to pull the entire transaxle out of the rear end of the tractor. Unfortunately, we can't do this with it in the machine. We're going to have to pull it out, and we're going to have to remove that rear left axle. So I went ahead and looked that up too. That is on page 686. So this is the removal of it. We're going to pull this whole housing apart. We don't need to pull the axle necessarily out of the housing. We can leave the axle in the housing, but we're going to have to pull the whole works out of the tractor and then remove these bolts here, the 6 bolts, and pull this whole housing off the side of the transaxle. And that'll give us clearance to then be able to get our PTO shaft out. I know it seems like a lot of work just for one seal, but unfortunately, in the way some guys say, that's just the way she goes. So we're going to have to do that in order to get to what we want to get to. I'm going to show you guys this, kind of what the leaky PTO shaft looks like here in the mid. I hosed this whole thing down with brake clean, and because it was just covered in oil everywhere. But you can clearly see leaking right out of the bottom of there is where that's all coming from. So it might be possible to dig that seal out of there and replace it from the front, but I don't think that's the case. Especially with the shaft in there, it's going to be really hard to try to pull that seal out the front. You just don't really have any way to get a hold of it. So we're going to go ahead and raise this tractor up and pull the rear end out of it, and it'll make a whole lot easier to see what's going on that way too. So, all right, so we're going to go ahead and pull this seat pan off of here, and then we're going to go ahead and pull the foot pan off of here too. I got most of the bolts out. There's a few left in here yet. The seat pan, I got all the bolts out, so we can get that off there right now. All right, next order of business is going to be to get the gas tank out of the way. So pull these lines all off of here. I'm going to lose a little bit of dyno juice. That's okay. Little gas fumes never hurt anybody, right? I know they make a fancy tool for this, but screwdriver works too. All right, so I'm gonna pull those wires all out of the way. Ooh, taking a bath in it. We'll set the gas tank over here out of the way. And we are peeing gasoline everywhere. Shouldn't be that much in there. Okay. Get some tools out. Usually I'll just take a 4x4 or something like that. Run this jack up underneath there just to hold the rear end of the mower up. We are going to take the complete transaxle out from underneath of it. She's going to be rear endless here in just a few minutes. So I suppose we should probably take these out too. These bolts are all loose. I loosened these up ahead of time. So got some linkages to remove yet, or go forward, go backwards linkage, and a couple of hydraulic lines here we need to unhook. All right, guys, so we finally got this thing out of there. It was quite the challenge, I'm not going to lie. And then just trying to get it to stay upright. This thing is the most awkward, top-heavy thing you'll ever deal with in your entire life. So all it wants to do is roll upside down. So I had to get the floor jack off from under the mower, get the mower cribbed up, and then get the jack underneath here so we could maintain this thing in some kind of an orderly fashion. Okay, so next up, this whole axle assembly, tire and all, has got to get out of the way. So that's the next order of business here. And in order to get that done, you can see here we've got these screws. One here, one here, one here. And then another one down here on the bottom. And one on the other side. I guess it's over here. So we have to get those screws all out. And then I think this should just come off of here. So we'll find out here real shortly. Those are going to be a 14 mil. And they're probably tight. See what I mean about how this thing just always wants to tip over and never really wants to stay up straight. It is the most awkward thing I think I've ever dealt with. Really, no matter where you put that jack, there's just no good spot to keep it put where you want it. So something else I always like to do whenever I take screws out of something like this is make sure all the screw lengths are the same. You can get yourself into trouble sometimes by not paying attention to stuff like that. You know, you take out 6 screws and you don't pay attention to the lengths. Next thing you know, one of those 6 screws was shorter than the other 5. So if you don't get that one back in the same hole and you put a longer screw in that shorter hole, you end up blowing the bottom of the hole out and causing a lot of problems. So, or vice versa, you put a, you know, short screw in a longer hole and you pull the threads out, and then you got problems. So I always like to try to lay them out like this, especially when it's something I've never had apart before. So that way it kind of helps you out, you know what I mean? If there is one shorter, you'll see it, you'll hopefully remember it. I've been bit like that before. So you always want to pay attention to that kind of stuff. It's the little things that get you. Okay, so there you go. That's all 6 of them, all the same length. We're in good shape. All right, so there we go. That is the axle pulled out of there. All right, so now you guys can see in there where the axle actually was. You can see the axle was right up in here. And why this PTO shaft is cut down like this, because it actually would interfere with that axle shaft. So this necessitates us pulling this axle off of here so that we can get this guy out of there. Yes, I did have this cover off of here earlier. You might notice some of these screws are not overly tight, so we did have this off of here earlier. We had a boo-boo in our recording, and so we had to go back in time and start over. So if you guys are thinking that maybe some of this was set up, I didn't set anything up, but I most certainly did have I had a boo-boo, and so we had to go back and start over. Okay, so there's what we have going on behind door number 1. Got our 3 different gears here, which is exactly what the print at the beginning of this video showed you guys. So we're going to have to get this snap ring off of here so we can pull this gear out. Behind that gear, there's going to be a couple of bolts holding the bearing in. So now that the axle's out of the way, we should be able to get the whole works out of there pretty easily. Okay, hopefully we got a decent angle here and you guys can see what I'm doing. Pull the snap ring off. Let's put that in the cover right back here. All right, and pull this gear off of here. Put that in the cover right behind us. Okay, we got 2 bolts there to pull out. We don't want to lose that washer down inside there. That would not be good. Okay. And there you go. There's your PTO shaft. Want to make sure we look at this area here. Make sure there's no damage. It's nice and smooth, which it feels really good. And then down inside there, there's actually a needle bearing in there. We're not going to pull that out per se. We're going to leave that there. I don't know if you guys can see it down in there. There's a needle bearing way down inside there. I can stick my finger through here and kind of show you it's down in there. So you guys want to make sure that that needle bearing's all in good shape. Looks like all the needles are in there. I don't see any wear or anything. Nothing to be cause for alarm. So now we can go out here on the outside and get a hold of that seal, which is the cause of all these issues, and pull it out and change it with a new one. So the seal you guys are going to need is going to be this one right here, CH14765. That's the mid PTO seal. Now we're going to try to dig that old seal out of there. I know it's going to be really hard for you guys to see. Light is just not great here. we're going to go ahead and try to pick that seal out of there. Just like that. Piece of cake. Popped it right out of there. So that's it. That's a whole lot easier because I can go through the seal and get to the back side of it with this guy here than trying to do it with it in there. Make sure our hole in here isn't corroded or scratched up or anything like that. And I think that's pretty reasonable, so should be in pretty good shape. As far as direction goes, I'm sure there's a lot of talk about, you know, which direction the seal should go in there. The old one came out with this side here facing in and this side here facing out. If you look at it closely, there's two lips there. There's an outside lip here and an inside lip back here. And you can see the inside lip pushes, the direction is in towards the rear of the unit. So as oil comes up against the back of this seal, it has a lot less surface space to get through. If this were flipped around, see how that faces out, the oil would work its way right up around that seal and right out the end of it. So we definitely want that lip facing in. So this would be the inside here. The oil will be here. You have a nice, sorry, it's hard to do that with one hand, but you have a nice sharp edge right here that'll catch the oil. So we flip that around like that. See how this faces in. If the oil, this were the inside of the seal, you can see how the oil would just go right past that seal, past the sharp edge, and would get to the outside. So you want that sharp edge to face in to stop that oil from going past it. Now to put that one back in. A lot of times I'll just I'll use a socket or something like that. Just want to make sure it's big enough. That you're getting along the edge of the seal, not in the middle where the rubber part is. Don't want to damage the rubber, of course. So, all right, that's it. The seal is back in. Time for reassembly. First order of business is going to be our shaft here. Make sure that's clean. We didn't set it on the ground or anything, so it should be in pretty good shape. Might want to wipe the end of that off though. There's a lot of grime and stuff from the outside there, and we don't want to push that through our new seal. And looking at the shaft here, looks in pretty good shape. It's nice and smooth. A little bit of marking here, but this machine has about 1,400 hours on it, so I would expect to see a little bit of marking there where the seals have been riding. But for the most part, I would say not too bad. Let's go ahead and put it together. Okay, that looks pretty happy. Put our screws back in. Everything, of course, has a torque spec. We're going to go with a couple of rat-a-tat-tats and call it good. This is an aluminum housing, so we don't want to get carried away. Should still spin nice and free. A little bit of restriction there. That new seal is definitely doing its job. So, all right, next order of business. Put the sprocket back on, this side facing in. These teeth here should be lined up nice and smoothly. If for some reason you put it on backwards, you'll notice right away that they don't line up. See, we have an indentation here. This gear is in a lot farther, which means it's going to rub on stuff back there. It's not what we want. We want good alignment. I want to use all the teeth. So, like that. That's what we want. Make sure our snap ring has gone all the way into the groove. it has. So it's okay if you can spin it in there as long as it's in the groove where it belongs to keep the gear in place. Okay, so next up, I'm gonna have to spend some time and get all this surface area clean all the way around here. Same way on the cover and the same way over here for the axle shaft. So give me a few minutes to get that stuff all cleaned up and we'll get it gooped up and we'll put this thing back together. Got everything cleaned up. Had to go to the store and get some room temperature vulcanizing cream, otherwise known as RTV. Some of this stuff here. So I just use some Permatex Ultra Black. Let it set up for a little bit. It's really all you need. I just put a little bit on my finger and then wipe a real nice thin layer on there. Remember, the whole purpose of that really is just to fill in the imperfections in the metal. That's it. That's all you're doing with it. So you don't need a whole hog dose on there. So when we work these bolts down tight, we're just going to squeeze it out into here, and then it's going to end up getting into the hydraulic system, and we really don't want that. So we don't need any more contamination in the hydraulic system than is absolutely necessary. So if we come over here to the axle, I have done the same thing to the axle housing, put a thin layer all the way around there. I am going to take a towel and wipe off the mating surfaces here where they're going to mate at. And oh, got to make sure we don't forget about the dowel pin here. If we lose that, we'll be in trouble too, won't we? Which goes right in there, I believe. Yep. Same way with here. Make sure we wipe this all off nice and clean all along here. We don't want any of this oil on here. Oil and the RTV don't get along the greatest. They don't hate each other, but they don't like each other either. So let me go ahead and grab a towel and we'll wipe that all off. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and try to put this back together. Try to get the dowel pins to line up there if we can. Make our life just a little easier. That's why they're there. Yeah, that's pretty good. Remember, this is just aluminum. So we don't want to get too carried away. But we also don't want them to vibrate out. All right. Okay. That's going to do it for that. Let's move on to the back cover. One thing I kind of noticed about this cover is these top holes kind of don't want to line up the best. You got to kind of push it that way a little bit to get it to line up with the dowels for some reason. You would think it would want to line up just a little better than that, but I'm not sure what that's all about. But if you just push it that way a little, it does line up. It seems to go pretty decent. So with any luck, when we're all done with this, we will no longer have leaks. We won't have this going on anymore. So that's what we're going for. I don't know about you guys, but there's nothing I hate worse than having a vehicle or a piece of machinery or something that you can't park it anywhere without it marking its spot. You know what I'm saying? It's like a dog. Got to mark the spot. Got to pee on the fire hydrant no matter where you are. It just drives me nuts when you have that going on. So that's why I go to these extremes to prevent that. So you don't always win. You don't always get things to stop leaking, but you can certainly try. That's for sure. Definitely going to go around this with a ratchet. Make sure those are good and tight. Oh, missed one. I am terrible about that. Put stuff down and just forget about it. I don't know where it went. Again, this guy is aluminum, so we can't get carried away here. We just want it snug enough that nothing's going to back out on us. We don't want to strip one of those out. If we do that, it's going to be a bad day. All right, there it is. It's all back together. Time to go back in the tractor. While we got this apart though, I do want to take a moment to show you guys a few leak points on this particular transaxle. This guy right here, I believe this is your brake. This seal here will leak. You can change that. I have actually already changed it on this one. That's another common leak point right there. So not uncommon to see them leak out of that shaft. Another spot where they usually leak, and I talked about this earlier, was this is your forward and reverse lever. In behind here, you have to take this lever off of here. In behind here, there's some O-rings. Another very common place for these to leak out of. Very common, actually. This is more common than any of the other places where it leaks. So another place that's pretty common is behind here. A lot of times the reason behind why that leaks like that is because, as I said earlier in the video, as the tractor heats up from operation, you build pressure in here, right? Because the oil expands. So when that happens, if this vent up here is plugged, usually it'll get plugged in here, or it'll get plugged down in here full of mud and crap. This vent will get plugged off. When this vent gets plugged off, then that's when things get pressurized and we start pushing oil out everywhere. I do have a new vent. This is what it looks like, and there's your part number for it right there. MIU 805202. So if you wanted to put a new vent on there, or this is missing completely, then there you go. That's the part number for it. That will replace this guy here for you. All right, guys. So there you go. That's the transaxle's all back together now. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and put it back in the tractor. All right. All right, so finally got it back in there. I have got to take a minute and clean up this greasy mess. We are just spreading oil everywhere. So give me a couple minutes here to get some oil dry on this and get this mess swept up, and then we'll get back at it. Well, there you go, fellas. The linkages are all hooked back up. The lines are all hooked back up. The drive shaft is hooked back up. Mounting bolts are all back in. We're all tightened up and ready to go. Honestly, now it's time to put some oil on it. Okay, so I tried to look up how much oil this thing takes, and wasn't able to really find a number. I'm sure it's in that manual somewhere. But you know what? We're going to pour one of these in, and we're going to check it with a dipstick and see where we're at. And then we'll just keep topping off from there until we get there. I'm not going to save all this. I've been messing around with this for so long. Just barely on the edge of there now. There we go. So there we go. That's a good reading. That's what we're looking for. This guy here went on something like that. So a lot of people don't know this, but this lever is down here in the wheel well. You can pull this lever up, which pushes your forward and backwards, forward and reverse valves. It opens those, and it's supposed to allow you to freewheel this. So if you have one of these and you want to move it somewhere, you should be able to pull that lever up and then freewheel this wherever you want to go with it. That's the whole purpose of this. I know guys that have owned these for a long time, of course, they know that. But if you're new to the, 440, 425, 445, or even a 455 family of mowers, you may not know about that lever. It's kind of a hidden secret back there behind the wheel. So if you don't know about it, well, now you do. That'll work. All right, guys, we got everything all back together. Truth be told, it is the next day. We ran into a lot of trouble last night. It ran pretty late into the night, but we got it all back together. So I took the liberty off camera to put the mower deck all back on it and hook everything all back up. So we're gonna go out and mow some grass. We got a camera on our seal, and we're gonna see if it leaks. With any luck, we're in good shape, and this mower can head on down the road. All right, guys, we did a little bit of mowing with the mower. Let's have a look underneath here and see what we see. See if the seal is leaking or not.
Well, it is definitely kind of hard to tell, but everything does look pretty dry underneath there, so I think we're all right.
Of course, it's always hard to tell. You only mow for a few minutes and it doesn't look like it's leaking. The real true test will be to get through the rest of the summer and not leak. That's what we're looking for. But as of right now, looks like we're in pretty darn good shape. So that's going to do it for this episode of Last Stop Repair Shop. Guys, thanks so much for watching, and we'll keep making these videos as long as you guys find value in them. Thanks for watching.